There's a particular kind of moment that's been happening more often lately. A builder mentioned they've started using AI for some part of their business. What they describe is usually one of two things. Either they tried it once, got a generic answer about something they already knew, decided it wasn't useful and moved on, or they're using it to write social media captions, respond to emails, and they're not quite sure what else it's good for. In both cases, what's happening is they're underestimating what a tool, something like Claude, actually does, and they've missed the part of their business where it would actually help them the most. So I want to spend some time talking about how a custom home builder should actually be thinking about and using AI in 2026, because I think this is one of the bigger shifts in how a small operation can run, and most builders either haven't really caught up to it yet, or they're too old school to use this new school concept. So here's what I want to talk through. First, I want to talk about what AI Claude actually is and isn't, because there's a lot of noise around AI, and a lot of people swinging between it being magic and it being useless, and neither of them are right. Then I want to spend some time on where the actual leverage is for a home builder, which connects back to something I've talked about before, which is that the constraint in this business is rarely the physical work. After that, I'll walk through specific ways I actually use it in a custom home building operation with enough detail that you could pick it up and start doing some of these things this week. And toward the end, I'm going to talk about where this fits in the bigger picture of running a business, because no tool, including this one, replaces the things that actually matter. So let me start with what Claude is, because that framing matters. So Claude's a chat-based assistant from a company called Anthropic. You can ask it questions, you can give it documents to read, you can have real back and forth conversations with it. It is good at reading, writing, and thinking through problems out loud with you. It's not a magical system that runs your business in the background. It's not going to schedule your subs, it's not going to order your materials. It is a tool that helps with the cognitive and written work that's already a big part of what you do, and the value comes from how thoughtfully you use it. So treating it like a search engine misses most of what it can do. Treating it like a person with judgment also misses the mark, because it doesn't know your subs, it doesn't know your market, it doesn't know your clients, and can be wrong with a lot of confidence. It also is not going to just straight up replace people. So let's please throw that out the window. The right way to think about it is as a very capable assistant who's read a lot, but needs your context and your judgment to actually be useful in your specific situation. So now you're probably asking, well, why does this matter for a home builder? A while back, I did a video about the first real hire most builders need, and the underlying point was that the constraint in a building business is not usually the physical work. It's the cognitive load of the business. The estimating, the communication, documentation, the drafting, the back and forth with clients and architects and subs. That's what's eating your day. That's the work that lives inside your head and your inbox and your phone, and it doesn't go away no matter how much labor you hire. Claude is not going to replace a project manager, just like I said earlier. But what it can do is it can take a chunk of that cognitive overhead that even a project manager doesn't get to. And it's available at any hour on any device for a very modest monthly cost, at least while I say this video. So before we get into specifics, that's the framing. We're not talking about magic. We're not talking about eliminating people. What we are talking about is simply reducing the load on the part of your business that is the hardest to scale. So let me walk through how this actually shows up day to day. The first place that I'd point to most builders is for communication drafting. You probably write more emails and texts than you realize. You send weekly updates to clients, explanations to subs, change order narratives, letters to architects, responses to inquiries from prospects. And most of it is the kind of writing that's not hard, but it takes time. If you track that, the cumulative load adds up over the week, because even writing one thoughtful email can take you half an hour, and you sometimes need breaks. With Claude, you can describe your situation in a few sentences, you can explain the context, you can attach documents for reference, and you can tell it what you want it to say and let it write it in a way that makes sense in a professional draft in under a minute. And then as you give it edits and it gets smarter, it's going to start slowly writing more and more like you. Do not take the first draft as perfect. You can tell it's AI. Edit it into your voice, but it will help you organize it in a way that would take you half an hour to do. So instead of starting with a blank document, you are starting with a draft that has meaningful time savings behind it. And often, because you're describing the situation to set up the draft, you end up thinking through it more clearly than you would have on your own. There's tremendous power in this. Do not let it replace thought, but when you want to take a lot of ideas and condense it into something simple, it is very skilled at doing that for you. The second place is document review. A custom build generates a lot of paper. You have architect sets, scope documents, subcontracts, change order requests, design specs, supplier proposals, just to name a few. You don't have time to read everything carefully, but missing something does cost you. So Claude can actually read documents and summarize it for you in a few seconds. It can actually take two proposals, put them up head to head, and then tell you where the differences are. That has been tremendous and extremely powerful. If you are a solopreneur or you have a very small team, you don't have a procurement person and you need to review bids, because bidding can be very effective in building to save your clients more money. More importantly, you can then follow it up with specific questions. What is not clear in the scope? What's missing that should be in here? Where does this contract put more risk on me than you would recommend? Where do these two documents conflict? That's the kind of thing where you normally spend an hour plus, and now you don't have to. You can let Claude do that analysis for you, and then you can go back and ask for references and skim those sections of documents to move faster. So now you ask a real question and you get a real answer. And then you can use your judgment from there instead of just relying on the document to make the judgment for you. Again, it doesn't replace your thinking. It just simply helps consolidate so that you can make faster decisions. Third place is what I'd call thinking out loud. Because there are a lot of moments in business where you're working through a problem in your head, you're weighing options, trying to figure out how to handle a situation. Maybe a client's unhappy about something and you're trying to figure out how to respond. Maybe a sub didn't perform and you're deciding what to do about it. Maybe you're sitting with a pricing question on the project that's outside your normal scope. Claude is genuinely useful as a sounding board for that kind of thinking. You can describe the situation, what you're weighing, and it'll push back, ask questions, suggest angles you hadn't considered. You can even ask it to try to understand from the client's perspective if that is not a skill set you have mastered yet. I highly recommend having it do that because if you have not been trained in that regard, having a system that can explain to the other perspective can sometimes be very, very powerful in you understanding a question, understanding a client, understanding a sub, and then getting the right decision. It's not making the decision for you. Ultimately, you're making the decision, but it gives you something to think against, which is different from sitting alone with a problem, running in circles, getting lost, and being unable to think from a different perspective. For a lot of operators who don't have a peer they can call about every decision, that is surprisingly valuable. The fourth area is templates and processes. Every builder accumulates a set of recurring documents over time. You have templates, onboarding letters, scope of work outlines, walkthrough checklists, closeout packages, and most builders have inconsistent versions of these scattered across old projects or very outdated and old. Claude can easily help you build cleaner versions faster by working through them with you in conversation. It can also formalize a process if you just want to turn on the chat feature, talk to it, what the process is, and it'll create it for you. And then it can even recommend where the gaps are if you talk to it and you ask follow-ups. So you can describe what you need, it'll draft it, you refine it, and you end up with a real template or process document you can use repeatedly, or you can hand off to somebody else if you're still early in hiring. The same thing applies to SOP procedures if you've got people working under you, because the work of writing those documents has always been the bottleneck, not the value of having them, and Claude reduces that bottleneck significantly. Here's a really cool trick that I've learned. You can use something like Loom. You can document the process on your computer with or without your face, depending on if you like that. You can then take that, upload it into Claude and say, take this process in this video, reference the link, here's the link, write an SOP document, and it will do it for you. That would have taken me an entire day. They can do it for you in half an hour. Now, the last area I'm gonna mention is content and marketing. Most builders are bad at this, not because they have nothing to say, because they don't have the time or the patience to write, or they simply don't want to. If you've got expertise and stories and a perspective, Claude can help you turn that into a blog post, newsletter content, social media captions, video scripts, whatever you need it to do. The voice has to be yours and the substance has to come from you, but the labor of getting something from a rough idea into a more finished piece of content drops dramatically. That way, rather than taking, again, all day, all weekend, all night to do this, you can do it in half the time and be very intentional about it. So it's still your voice, but it just makes it more efficient and faster. So for a builder who's trying to build that reputation, their market over time, that compounds. Somebody that's trying to grow from 1 to 2 houses a year to 10, 15, 20 houses a year or change their business, it makes a world of difference. Now, I wanna spend a minute here on where this doesn't just replace your judgment, because if you only take the first half of this video and you miss this part, you're gonna make some bad calls. Claude is not your contract lawyer. Please do not let it act like a lawyer. It can flag things in a contract that might be worth a review or a question, but you need an attorney. You need to trust your attorney on anything material. Do not try to play attorney. This is a pet peeve for me at this point. Claude is not an attorney. It is also not your structural engineer or your code official. It can help you think through a question, but an answer that affects safety and compliance needs to come from a qualified human who has spent time studying and getting certified in that. It can be confidently wrong about specifics, especially numbers. Names, codes vary by jurisdiction, and details about your local market. So yes, you want to treat it like a smart assistant who has never been to your job sites, has not met your clients, and has not read your local code. Use what's useful, but always verify what matters. Do not outsource the decision. There's also a question I get from builders who are more skeptical, which is whether using AI for client-facing work is somehow dishonest or makes the relationship less authentic. I think this is the wrong way to look at it. If you use Claude to draft a clear update letter to a client, the result is clear letter. The client is better informed. You're still the one who's giving the context, telling it what to say. You're the one reviewing it, you're signing off on it, and you're standing behind what's in it. The same is true if you use a paralegal to draft a letter, or if you use a project coordinator to handle your communication. The tool helps you to do your job better. That's not dishonest. What would be a problem is if you use it to fake substance you don't have, to generate work product without doing the underlying thinking, or to communicate in a way that isn't really you. That's a discipline question, not a tool question. So if you're a builder thinking about how to actually start with this, my recommendation is small and specific. Pick one place where it would help. Drafting communications is obviously the easiest point of entry. It has the lowest stakes and it has the most immediate payoff. Use it for a week. Get a feel for how it responds and how you need to talk to it to get the useful output. Then expand into document review and into thinking out loud use cases. By the time you're 3 months in, it'll be a normal part of how you work. The same way email and smartphone have become a normal part of our day today. It's not gonna feel revolutionary day one. It's gonna feel weird and awkward, but it's gonna feel like your load got lighter. The fundamentals here, the same ones I keep coming back to, don't change. Tools do not replace responsibility. They do not replace consistency or judgment or the relationships that you build over time. They can make you more effective and they can shift where the constraint is. They do not change what actually wins in this business. The builders and the owners who use Claude well are gonna be the builders who are already disciplined operators. The builders who are sloppy and inattentive are gonna use it sloppily and inattentively, and it's gonna show. It'll end up in the same place they were headed already. This tool is simply an amplifier. It amplifies what you put into it, no more, no less. So looking ahead a year or two, my expectation is that this becomes table stakes, the way a smartphone became table stakes. There will still be builders who refuse to use it, and they will be operating at a real disadvantage. The same way a builder who refused to use email 15 years ago was operating at a disadvantage. So the question isn't really whether you'll use this. The question is how well you'll use it and how much of an edge you're gonna build by learning it now, while a lot of your competition is still treating it like a novelty. If this was helpful, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe. If you started using Claude or AI in your operation, or if you're trying to figure out where to use it in your business, put a comment down below and we'll get back to you.